Good afternoon, everyone. How are we? Good? Terrific. So today is the regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, Wednesday, October 23rd, 2 p.m. Stephanie, you want to call the roll?
Mayor Cruzen?
I'm here.
Comptroller Green? Here. President Reed?
Here.
Okay, items presented for the first time. Number 1, 20.029. Request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of contracts and leases for various city departments as listed on Exhibit A. Number 2, 20.030. Request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of intra-departmental and interdepartmental transfers from various city departments as listed on Exhibit B. Number 3, 20.031. Request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of transfers between projects for capital improvement funds listed on Exhibit C. Number 4, 20.032. Request from the Comptroller's Office for approval to add one real estate records clerk on the table of organization. Number 5, 20.033. Request from the Mayor's Office for approval of Board Bill 112. This ordinance authorizes a supplemental appropriation to the annual budget ordinance 70963 for FY 2020 amounting to the sum of $9,360,460. Number 6, request from the Director of Health for authorization to destroy listed documents that have reached their retention period for disposal and are eligible for destruction in accordance with the State of Missouri record retention requirements. Number 5, request from the Community Development Administration Executive Director for approval of certain changes to the 2019 Annual Action Plan to reflect the actual grant award administered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Number 8, 20.036, request from the Community Development Administration Executive Director for approval of Board Bill 126. This ordinance authorizes the mayor to submit an annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, appropriating a total of $24,097,045 for the 2020 Community Development Block Grant Home Investment Partnership Emergency Shelter Grant and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS. Number 9, 20.037, request from the Community Development Administration Executive Director for approval to exchange one clerk typist 2 position for one housing development analyst senior position on their table of organization. Number 10, 20.038, request from the Chief Medical Examiner for approval of the following changes on their table of organization. Eliminate one secretary, add one administrative assistant 1. Eliminate one forensic office administrator, add one executive director for operations. Eliminate 2 medical legal investigator 1s and add 2 medical investigator 2s. Eliminate 1 autopsy technician 3 and add 1 autopsy technician supervisor. Number 11, 20.039, request from the Director of Airports for approval of Board Bill 119. This ordinance authorizes a first amendment to the 7 on-airport passenger vehicle rental concession agreements at St. Louis Lambert International Airport. Number 12, 20.040, request from the Republican Director, Board of Election Commissioners for approval of a board bill, number to be determined. This ordinance will set up a cost center and account in the 1168 fund for their 2019-2020 state grant agreement. And then lastly, the Airport Working Group update on the status of the process of exploring a public-private partnership for the lease management, operation, and/or development of the airport by Paul Payne, Chairman.
I move that we adopt items 1 through 12 as printed.
Second.
I'd like to discuss one of the items in number 1, and it happens to be the last item.
12. Oh,
No, item number 1,
okay.
which is
On the-
approving contracts, et cetera.
Okay.
So I just want to point this out because I think this is something that most of our constituents will be happy about. With this contract here, it's for $1 million. And it's for the city to cut down and remove 2,000 trees starting late this year and going into next year. These are trees, dead trees, ill trees, diseased trees, trees that are dangerous and need to be removed, that are in the public right of way, and that their health has been determined by a certified arborist. I think most of you know that there are dead trees in every ward across the city. It has been a long time since we've had a full table of organization in the tree trimmer category, and so we've gotten behind on removing some of these dead trees. So the RFP committee unanimously voted to approve this $1 million. It was significantly less than any other bid that was received. But I just think it's good that we're going to be able to, hopefully with your approval, approve this $1 million contract and begin taking down these dead trees that are literally all across the city. And of course, our forestry department's going to continue to work on trimming trees and dead trees as well, but we need a catch-up here before a tree limb does some serious damage. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out as a contract, and I appreciate everybody who worked on that. I think it'll be good. So there's a motion and a second.
Yep.
To approve items
1 through 12.
1 through 12. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of approving items 1 through 12 on the
Aye.
agenda? Aye. Aye. Items 1 through 12 on the agenda are passed. And now, Paul, we turn it over to you. I think, are you the one who requested to be on the Board of E&A agenda?
Yes.
Or how did you requested
Yes.
it? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Thank you, Mayor and Mr. President and Madam Comptroller. As you know, you all have representatives on the airport working group, so you're pretty much apprised of some of our progress. This is more of in a more formal setting, just advising you on where we are in the process and sort of updating where we've been, where we are currently, and what the outlook in terms of schedule going forward is. And I do have Glenn Laskowski here from MOLIS. He can answer any questions, as well as LaJuan Strickland, who's from Metropolitan Strategies in terms of our communication team, if there's any questions afterwards. In your packet, I did have a sort of a 3-page summary of where we are, and I'm just going to walk through that. So in terms of the airport P3 lease exploration process, sort of recapping where we've been to date. We're in our 14th month. Actually, we started with the consultants themselves last August, so that's been 14 months. And when we divided up the work, we looked at it, viewed it as sort of different disciplines of work streams that we were working through. The first one being airport due diligence, mostly handled through Rhonda's staff at the airport, and that involved compiling a lot of the information, operational, financial, as well, to put that together to sort of inform us as to what some of the financial modeling that was done was based on, as well as some of our negotiations with airlines and things like that. So a lot of that due diligence work has been done. It's not entirely done yet, but a lot of that has been assembled, and it will be utilized should we go forward into an RFP stage where that we'll be needing access to information regarding the airport's financials and operational information. Secondly, on the community outreach and communications, going back a ways, there were numerous opportunities for outreach to city residents, 21,000 face-to-face interviews, 1,200 resident phone interviews. We also did airline passenger questionnaires and 20 community outreach meetings. And also as part of this, and what I'm here today is formally updating E&A into this process, and there will be also a presentation to the Transportation and Commerce Committee meeting tomorrow. One of the frustrating things on communications we have found is basically saying, hey, what's going on? We don't know much about it because it's in closed session and all. And I have explained, and I know that's frustrating for a lot of people, I have explained that when you're in a competitive bidding environment, a lot of that discussion for those kind of purposes is just by its nature something that is done in closed session, because obviously you don't want to give any toward advantage to any particular group that may bid, or in the case of negotiations, that's something that you do in a closed session setting. And so I know sometimes we say, hey, well, why are you in closed session? Well, that's why. It's because it's proprietary information, and a lot of that is going on. We try to inform as much as we can when we have our meetings at the working group that we are doing that. Also, another one of the work streams, airline use agreement, airport lease. We did have our preliminary meeting with the FAA back in July of 2018, just letting them know that we were proceeding with the process. And then we had many months of negotiations and discussions with the airlines. And as you know, when we issued the RFQ, we did arrive at a preliminary framework as an understanding, basically, which is their agreement to proceed with the exploration process itself, which gives us a basis for issuing the RFQ, and which we did. So that took a considerable amount of time to do. And then based on that, we've got the RFQ issuance. In terms of market, which is another one of our work streams, we initially established a base level of anticipated capital expenditure requirements at the airport, and we do have that. Actually, that list was compiled and put online. That's about a $900 million plus list of projects. And then we also conducted financial modeling with it, which informs us on both where we are today in terms of as-is projections going forward, as well as any potential values resulting from a P3 lease scenarios. And it informed us in terms of how we wanted to view going forward with the RFQ, as well as our negotiations with the airlines. And finally, in the market, we also drafted the RFQ and used that information to draft our RFQ document. Another one of our work streams is existing debt and finance. As you know or may know, one of our requirements in any potential lease at the airport would require us to defease all outstanding debt at the airport. So we need to identify what those requirements are and what we would need to do to achieve that. And so that's going to be specified in any potential document going forward. And then it also requires us to keep the marketplace informed in terms of what of our attention, so which means occasionally, for instance, when we issued the RFQ, there was an EMA notice saying, hey, we're issuing the RFQ. So it basically keeps the bond markets apprised of what our progress is in this process. And finally, there's a legal and compliance work stream, which basically addresses things, making sure that our processes are in accordance with statutes and ordinances and dealing with particularly like sunshine law compliance and such as that. And then in addition, the legal and compliance, if you remember recently, we had a preliminary program to support airport employees. That's one of the things that was assistance with the legal and compliance, but what we can offer particularly employees at the airport and what we can provide in terms of assurances for them should we proceed down this path. And so that was also part of the legal's help with that. So that's where we have been. In terms of today, we did issue the request for qualifications. That was October 4th. Responses are due at 5 p.m. November 1st, 2019. And subsequent to that, we've had a number of questions, and as we do with any process that involves requests for qualifications or proposals, there's a question and answer period. And those, we received some questions, and those have been answered and provided online to both the questions and answers. So those have been posted. Currently, we are working on some key documents that would be be involved with any work that would go to the next step. If we go to that point of issuing an RFP, we're going to need some documents, because one thing that the RFQ provides is basically it's a request for firms that would be interested to submit their qualifications for us to look at and then say that they're interested in the process. But the RFP is the document where you start laying out specific requirements that you would expect from them. And so those are the kind of documents that work has begun on that, should we want to go down that path. And so that would be the lease agreement, airline use agreement, and importantly, the operating standards at the airport. So those are pretty detailed documents that we're beginning work on. And then for community outreach, we're going to be conducting a new round of community meetings. It's been a while since we've been out there, but now that we've got some new information to talk about, those will be out there. We've got 3 scheduled for next week. One on the 29th at Carpenter Library, one on the 30th at Schlafly Library and one on November 2nd at Walnut Park Library in the evenings there. And those have been posted online, and so those are available, that information. In terms of,
What time are they, Paul?
what's that? The Carpenter Library is 6 to 7:30 p.m. Schlafly is at 7 to 8:30 p.m. And Walnut Park, which is on a Saturday, would be 2 to 3:30 p.m.
Thank you.
And so that's where we are. And in terms of steps to come, timeline looking forward, this is the revised timeline that sort of brings us up to date of where we are and looking ahead. We do estimate that the RFQ, both the evaluation and timeframe, is 45 to 60 days. Again, it's due at the 1st of November, and we would expect to evaluate that through the month of November. An RFP decision would come shortly thereafter, probably in early December. And if you recall, when we embarked on this process, it was estimated it would be 18-24-month total period. And you can see the timeline down below. This is, we were still within that 24-month timeline. It's a little further down from that original timeline, but still within that estimate. So that would take you through most of next year if that were to come to a conclusion. And that's sort of what I've got here today. And if we have any questions for either Glenn or Lamont or myself, I'd be open to discuss those and go from here.
I got a few questions, but
No, go
I
ahead.
defer. So, do you want to tell people who's on the working group, and what if somebody wants to know more about this than just this few pages? Is there any place for them to go to get information, get meeting minutes, get data, tell us about that.
Yeah. Okay. The working group is comprised of 7 members. Myself as budget director, and then each member of the Board of E&A has a designee. Linda Martinez is the mayor's designee. Gerard Hollings is the president's designee, and LaTanya Kenner is the comptroller's designee. We also have the airport director as a non-voting member, as well as Marlene Davis, Alderman, who's chair of the Transportation and Commerce Committee, and Michael Garvin as representative from the city councilor. In terms of our updating information, all of our meetings, both video as well as minutes, are posted on the Fly 314 website. You can find that directly at Fly 314 or through a link from the city's website as well. All of our, both the minutes, the meetings, the handouts, documents, the RFQ, all of that information is posted online at that website.
Okay. And you said that you've identified requirements pertaining to defeasance of the airport debt. What does that mean? What does defeasance mean?
Well, defeasance, basically, we're one of the requirements in entering this process. And it was a guiding principle, was that all debt would be paid off if we were to do that.
Pay off.
So and so in that instance, some debt may be outstanding. So a defeasance would be an arrangement such that if there was some situation where you can't pay off the bonds because it's not callable at that moment, you set aside money to pay the debt until that moment is reached, and then you pay off the debt. So that's sort of a process for extinguishing the outstanding debt at the time.
So the airport or the airport really would no longer owe the 600
plus million.
plus million that they currently have in debt.
Right. It's estimated to be about 650 or something like that.
Gotcha. And then on the last page, the second bullet point, it says RFP decision in early December. Now, you don't mean that you're going to have a decision on the RFP in early December. Don't you mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Just rephrase that.
Yeah, we're talking about issuance of an RFP, not a result of an RFP. Because right now we're just going through the RFQ process.
Okay. So in early December, you would expect to issue a request for proposal?
Yes, assuming that our RFQ comes back successfully.
If you decide to.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I would just say thanks to the committee who's been working extremely hard for 14 months, and for your diligence on this really important subject. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, you guys have really moved this process along, and I would imagine that you've collected quite a bit of data on the operations of the airport, contracts and leases, and seems like you guys have really done a good job of digging into this, so thank you.
I think for anyone interested in the RFQ, it's really interesting. It's, there's a lot of information about the airport and about what, you know, I just recommend reading it. If you're interested, go to Fly 314.
Right.
Anybody else? You done?
Thanks, Paul.
Motion?
Yeah, I move that we adjourn this open session.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.